All right, good evening, everyone. I want to welcome everyone to the Maury County Board of Education meeting today. First item of business, we'll call the roll. I'll ask the Vice Chairman to call the roll, please.
Mr. Dudley, Mr. Lindsay, Ms. Powers.
Here.
Mr. Beaver.
Here.
Mr. Morrison is here. Mr. Bates.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Laster.
Present.
Mr. Pennings.
Here.
Ms. Martin. Ms. Parker. 7 present, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Looks like we have a quorum to do business, so we'll move on to the next item. Looks like we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance, and today that's going to be led by Highland Park Elementary School.
Good evening. I have with you the chorus group as well as our art club. So we have the art here. Our art teacher is Sarah Hyatt, and our chorus teacher is Holly Sanders.
Take a moment of silence, and as we take a moment of silence, I would ask everyone to think about and remember the victims of the Paris tragedy. All right, we'll now move on to our adoption of an agenda. But before we do that, we do have something in the proposed agenda about remembering our mission. We know that our vision is educating every child for life, but this is probably a good time before every meeting just to take to think about that as we have this meeting. What is our mission? What is our vision as we move forward? All right, so next item is the agenda. Mr. Beaver, he had one addition, which we're going to add under staff report, and it'll be B. There's going to be a discussion with Mr. Parkhurst about food services. Does anybody have any other additions or changes to the agenda before we vote on it? All right, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as revised? Motion by Mr. Moore. Second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we're ready to vote. That motion passes. All right, next item is, I don't see any recognitions or announcement listed under agenda. I just want to make sure, though, I'm not missing anything. Seeing none, we're now ready for Maury County Education Association. Mr. Orman.
Good evening. We are at the end of the time building up to Thanksgiving, and we've had a good day from what I've heard from across the county, and we're thankful, like everybody else is, when there comes a time to have a few days off. I was asked to remind you all, I know that you know it already, but to remind you all about the amount of testing that is going on. I talked to an English teacher today. She said that so far this semester she has lost 12 hours of classroom teaching time just supervising tests, and that is just in English. That doesn't count all the other classes that have to be tested. So just bear in mind, as everybody does the business that has to be done, that there seems to be still an excessive amount of testing going on, and it's beginning to affect morale because every hour that we are out of our classrooms are displaced because somebody has to use our classroom. Every hour takes away an hour of teaching that that our kids are going to be tested over, and we are held responsible for what they make on those tests. So by the time this English teacher goes to Christmas break and comes back, when you double the time she's lost already just in this one English test that's been done now, she will, in this one English test, having to do it again next semester, she will have lost 48 hours in the classroom. So just a reminder that we are concerned with how much our kids know, and we want them to be the best educated anywhere, but the morale is being affected in some places because of the amount of time that we are not able to teach, but we are still held responsible for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orman. As always, we appreciate y'all's feedback. All right, next item is public delegations, and I'll ask somebody to check the board to see if we have anybody that's signed up. But we also already have somebody on our agenda, Stephanie Ezel, who's going to come before us to talk about American Red Cross.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Ezel. Thank you, Mr. Gaines. My name is Stephanie Ezel. I'm a lifelong resident of Maury County. I graduated from Central High School, as did my 3 children, and I currently have a granddaughter enrolled at Highland Park she wasn't here tonight, but she's there. It's kind of funny, I was in this building 2 nights ago at the advisory council meeting, so nice to see several of the faces again tonight. I've been with American Red Cross for nearly 14 years, and that's the primary reason for my visit tonight. American Red Cross is a household name. As we all know, Red Cross supports the community through disaster relief like floods, tornadoes. We work very closely with the fire department to ensure that those people who have fires have first needs with their clothing, with their food, with their shelter for those immediate needs. We also do CPR classes and so forth. Those disasters that I just talked about are really pretty sporadic, but personal disasters happen every day. Personal disasters like Sweet Lucas. Those happen to our citizens of Maury County each and every day, and that's the primary reason for my visit tonight, is to talk about blood services. Lucas here is a prime example. Like I said earlier, you mentioned the mission, and I actually had that on my agenda as well, in addition to the vision. The vision is educating every child for life. You guys have already read the mission, so I'm not going to say it again. But I can't speak loudly enough for how much Red Cross believes in both your vision and your mission. Classroom time is vital. As he was talking about, every hour out of the classroom is very vital. Life lessons are also very important for our students. Nationally, 20% of the blood supply is supplied by college and high school students. Here in Maury County, it's only 10%. Some principals have elected to not have blood drives this year because of that rigorous testing schedule that was just mentioned before me. But guys, we really need to know or teach our kids about the community responsibility of giving back. Right now, the 40 to 60-somethings are providing the blood supply for the elders and the people like Lucas that need the blood supply. Who's going to supply it for us if we don't teach our kids the importance of that community responsibility today? Last year, Red Cross paid $4,750 in scholarship monies to Maury County students, guaranteed scholarship money for those students. This year, each school has the opportunity to earn up to $2,500 per school guaranteed based upon the amount of units they collect, but we can't pay those monies if blood drives are not being hosted. It's up to us as parents, up to you as board members, our principals, and our teachers to educate our students about that community responsibility. The Red Cross's mission is to provide the right unit of blood for the right person at the right time. Red Cross is actually no longer the primary supplier for Maury Regional Hospital, but we do still service the residents of Maury County by providing over 43% of the patients that are registered with blood products. If you or any of your loved ones have ever received treatment in St. Thomas, Centennial, Vanderbilt Children's Hospital like Lucas, and many other residents that are children in Maury County that are currently receiving blood products, that's where we work. American Red Cross is here. We're positioned to help everyone in need, whether it's the wildfires in the West, the tornadoes in the heartland, or the floods that we had right here in our backyard a few years ago. Again, we're here to respond for the right unit of blood for the right person at the right time. And in closing, I would like to ask each of you to support the American Red Cross like we support the community with those activities and those guaranteed scholarship monies. On behalf of Lucas's mother and all other Maury patients who are currently receiving blood products, I'm asking that you as the board support that each school in Maury County host at least 2 blood drives with Red Cross each year. And for allowing those students, it's about an hour of their time to help save up to 3 lives. And when you're talking about your mission statement, I can't think of a better way to teach a student about being an exemplary citizen than helping to save lives. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Ezell. Thank you for coming and talking with us today. All right, we're going to move on to staff reporting. Looks like the first report is going to come from our director regarding ERDI.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Okay, as part of my contract with that Mr. Morrison and I worked on, you know I belong to a group called the Educational Research Development Institute. And twice a year, we convene in Chicago and we meet with various businesses that talk to us about their products and ask for feedback. You know, what do you think? Is our pricing structure right? Do we offer enough? So if you'll, whoever's following, if we'll click to the next slide. I think it's in the board packet. Or do I need to take over the presentation? Take over? Can I take over? Can you switch to land, please? All right. Yeah, It's okay. All right. Mr. Pennings, what number is that? Does that say 3582 or 3502 on the screen? Ah, man, maybe I do need glasses. Sorry, Jim. My mistake. You said 3502? Okay. Okay, so I attended October 2nd through 4th, and we were at the Lowe's Chicago O'Hare Hotel. So Friday night, I had one group. Saturday, I had two groups, and then Sunday before I left, I had one more group. So I met with a total of four companies. The four companies that I met with in order, Friday night was Britannica Digital Learning. Saturday morning was a company called Next Lesson. On Saturday afternoon was Schoolzilla, and on Sunday morning was a company by the name of Imagine Easy. So Britannica Digital Learning, they're really trying to get away from the word Britannica, because when everybody thinks Britannica, they think of encyclopedias, and they want to get away with that. So they're embracing and moving into web-based digital learning. So all of their resources are all online. All of their content is aligned to the state academic standards. So for Tennessee, they've already gone through the process of aligning all of their content to our current Tennessee state standards. They have resources for teachers to include in instruction in the classroom, and everything is pretty much pre-built. And they have two things that they're working on. One is called Pathways, and one is called Modules. Modules, like you'll see over there in the lower right-hand corner for Pathway Science, kind of lay things out like matter, force and motion, energy, light and sound. And you basically take kids through an entire module that starts from introduction and ends with assessment. The next one I went to was a company by the name of Next Lesson, and these are pre-made, pre-built problem-based learning activities that use current statistics in their programs. So you notice one over there says quarterback efficiency. Students will literally be working through learning and understanding statistics from current Tennessee Titan stats from the previous week. So they'll learn about average, how many sacks. They'll learn about how many yards per carry, such and so forth. With Marketing Madness, students literally work through what it's like to work as a manager at Target or a manager at Walmart, and what it's like to calculate how much things cost per ounce and such and so forth. So it's all pre-built. They have both online and paper and pencil activities. And then, again, current statistics are updated weekly. So all of that information is in there for us to engage with students with. The third one I went to was a company by the name of Schoolzilla, and they currently work through dashboarding systems. So they take all of your data and they put it together in easy-to-read dashboards for teachers, principals, central office supervisors, and superintendent myself to look at. You can implement real-time data for accurate decision-making, and this is one of the companies that's right now currently working with us on how to develop a scorecard aligned to the upcoming keys to college and career readiness. So they're putting together some looks for us, and they're customizing it to Murray County schools, so they're creating something that does not currently exist. And they're going to be doing a final presentation in about 2 weeks to us. The last company that I sat with was a company called Imagine Easy, and it's all online, and they've got two products, Imagine Easy Scholar and Imagine Easy Academy. And basically, these products work on increasing writing and reading rigor. So students get in, they write, the teacher logs into the program, and it gives them feedback. They're allowed to put things in there, and it checks for accuracy and grammar, and that's pretty much what it does. So what I put down for the best bets are that we're currently working with Schoolzilla to design scorecards to accompany the keys of college and career readiness. So this is a viable company for us to work with. Down the road, Next Lesson and Britannica Digital Learning do offer products that would benefit our teachers and our students, but we're not there yet. So to introduce them at this point would not be a wise idea, because we wouldn't get a good return on investment. But right now, Imagine Easy, I didn't see a possibility of working with them at this time. They didn't have products that met our needs at this time. And in fact, we really used, there was a gentleman from North Carolina, myself, somebody from California, and I think the other one was from the Midwest. And we were really giving them heavy feedback about they really needed to go back and re-look at their product and decide how they want to market it. So it was a good information session, but more for them, less for us. So any questions? Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Director. Appreciate that report.
my pleasure.
Okay, next item we have on staff reporting, we have a report from Mr. Parkhurst. Excuse me.
Good evening, Board. I was asked to submit last year's year totals, basically running through our numbers for every school and then finalizing up with our year amount for the year. So as far as for Maury County schools and for school nutrition. So as you can see, I mean, as far as the bottom line goes, our bottom numbers for, I don't know if, wait for a poll up here. You'll see on the first page, Baker through Spring Hill High listed. I actually added in there the profit loss for last school year on the first column or first row in yellow. The second is federal reimbursements. It was a question I was asked about, and I gave a % of revenue for that reimbursement to give an idea of what we're receiving from the federal government to cover our meals. On the second screen or second page is Spring Hill middle through right, and then a grand total of what that looks like.
All right, let me open the floor, see if anyone has any questions. Mr. Beaver.
So long. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Parkhurst, I appreciate you getting this information for me, and we're talking yesterday, you know, and what I'm looking for is, you know, I see that we got a lot of money in fund balance.
Correct, sir.
We make pretty good chunk every year, a lot of money every year off the schools. And, you know, one of the questions that I have is, are we in business to make a profit as far as Maury County Food Services for the school?
We're in business to cover our cost, and that's where I'm in the process of putting that money back into our schools to cover our, you know, needed equipment, to the look, to, you know, to other things that we can, you know, move us forward.
Okay. All right. On our food, I've got a lot of complaints here lately about every couple of weeks what's on the menu, that item will be shorted. And then, you know, the personnel has to scramble to get some type of food out on the line for the students. And
The item would be short as far as they didn't make enough to serve our students. Is that what you're saying? When
I'm
you
not
say-
saying they didn't make enough to serve our students. What I'm saying is how's it determined how much food should be prepared each day? Say hamburgers, you know, just pick anything.
Our managers make that, you know, make a assessment based on prior history, and they'll run through the numbers of what was done in the past to try to project what is going to be needed for that day's service.
Okay.
So pretty much taking history into consideration. Of course, you know, being kids, what they do is, you know, when history doesn't always line up, so they have to make a judgment call of what do they think, so they're not overproducing a certain amount, too many burgers, and all of a sudden they have 100 burgers left over, and they're short on chicken nuggets for that day. So they're trying to make the best guess of what they're needing for each day. And of
Okay.
course, they have to do that weeks before because we have to get the food in, so.
Right. And what they order, is there any change from what they order to what the vendor gets to deliver?
No, it's typically, I mean, well, there are, you know, with this year, well, and past years as well, depends on the product. I mean, right now we're in a phase of lack of turkey because of the bird flu that went in Minnesota. They lost over 1 million birds. So there's that side of it with also chicken. I mean, so it depends on what they're able to receive in. I know we use Cisco, and they're over ordering just so they can try to supply us our need.
Okay, how about the quality of the food that, the meat especially? Is it grade A?
I would say we have good quality meat. I mean, we're using ground beef. When we have ground beef, we're using
Yeah, but what I'm
whole
saying
muscle.
is what is being purchased, is it grade A beef?
we're
Beef or
using-
chicken or whatever?
We're using Tyson products. We're using Gold Kiss, which is Pilgrim's Pride. We are using vendors and brand name people, companies. So we're not going and lowballing it and trying to find the cheapest of the cheap. That's not where I want to be. That's not where our kids should be. It's not where this county should be. So we're using quality product.
Okay. Well, and one of the things that I've been looking at, thinking about, and seeing this, 2 years ago when we accepted or voted to go to free lunches, and
Correct.
free breakfast, and we only went with 10 schools.
Correct.
And what would be the money difference to feed every school?
As I stated back then, it's roughly about $1 million that we would need to generate, or that we'd need to bring in on top of what we currently have. And I'd still stand by that same figure, in fact, of it would cost the district roughly $1 million.
Additional from where we are now.
Correct.
Thank you.
I mean, I'd have to come to you and ask for $1 million to cover the cost.
Okay, well, it looks like we're clearing about, how much, $244,000 a year?
Well,
224,000?
last year, yes, we cleared 224 is what we ended with. And of course, that's still, like I said, we have equipment needs, we have serving lines. I mean, you can ask the principals, they see it every day, that we haven't made upgrades, and that's what I'm working on, is trying to get our schools where they should be. And we're behind the 8 ball, plain and simple, and that's what I'm working on trying to fix. And that's going to cost a lot of money.
Okay, about the staffing, do you have enough people on staff to provide all the services?
As it stands right now, based on the studies I've done, yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does anybody have any other questions? Mr. Pennings?
Could you make us a list, I don't know, for the next meeting or a couple of meetings down the road, of how much money and what equipment you think you need to update your whole system, please?
Make myself a note on that.
Anybody else? All right, Mr. Parker, I appreciate you getting this information to us, and I guess if I'm understanding it correctly, right now there's excess money in the bank of a little over $2 million. Am I looking at the
Correct,
grand
yeah.
total number there? And I understand what you're saying, that you can't look on a month-to-month profit margin basis.
Correct.
Just because you're going to have capital needs. But certainly if we do have capital needs and we have capital funding, we want to kind of
Correct.
put those together and let's get something done on that. But if we don't have the number of capital needs that justifies that much money in the bank, another possibility that I would request that we take a look at is if we can't expand the free lunch to all the schools. I do see that we are making some money on, I guess, the a la carte sales, that sort of thing. And so some people, the schools that we have that it's not free, those parents are having to pull that money out of their own pocket to be able to do that. If we have some excess funding, could we take a look at, if we don't make it a free lunch, we reduce what we're charging? What do we charge for lunch
We
these
are
days?
currently charging $265 at high school, $240 at the elementary. The only concern or only side to that is our federal guidelines, pretty much there's a requirement of where we need to be. Currently, that rate is about $270. Is the last time I looked at it. We have a new one that just came out this year. That's paid lunch equity, and it's what the federal government is requiring or requesting us to make sure or that there is a balance between what a regular student would pay and what the federal government is giving us.
And I guess that's because this revenue that we're seeing here, most of that revenue is coming from the federal government?
Correct.
Okay.
But this would be only based on the 10 schools that are currently not CEP. So it's based on our kids that pay compared to the kids that are free at those schools.
Okay.
So they're trying to figure out that we're doing our share in that process. So lowering it down, I mean, it is something I can, look at with the state and, and ask that question. But that was one of the reasons 3 years ago before I came, they actually increased it because of what was suggested by the state.
Yeah, and I guess I understand that. If the feds, if they're sending the check, they can start dictating, well, what you all are charging. But I am looking at our statement, also in our financial reports, a statement of revenue, and it looks like, from what I'm looking at, we're bringing in in September, end of September 30th, about $780,000, and about $604,000 of that looks like to be federal money versus what I guess we're charging or
Correct.
where we're coming up with those funds. But I guess I would at least like to, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and the understanding that, well, maybe we can't go beyond the 270s or whatever that the Fed said, but just to maybe feel a little bit better, maybe the next meeting, double check that just to see if there is some flexibility, because that may be something, maybe we can't get everybody a free lunch.
How can we reduce it?
But if we are sitting on a little bit of extra funding each month, then maybe we can do something to help those parents out that are having to pay at the schools where it's not free.
Okay.
Mr. Penix.
When we voted for free lunch for the 10 schools, we said we would try for all the schools. And I said then, and I still believe it, you have a lot of families that are right on the borderline. Well, if we skip this for the family, they're proud and they're not going to apply for the free lunch because they're just proud. And like I said before, and I'll say again, if we can get the child to come to school for breakfast and get the child to come to school for lunch, whether that child wants to be there or not, that child's going to learn something. So if we in any way can do free lunch for all the schools, I would vote yes in a heartbeat.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Bates. I guess I'm going to ask one more favor to go a different direction. There were some comments there, and I know we've talked about, I know last year when you had some revenue come in surplus, which worked well, I know you put the majority of that back into getting staffing where you wanted it, as well as to do some upgrades to some equipment, which is great. I would like, as we move forward, I guess from my side, I guess there's two ways to look at improving lunch. You could obviously lower the price a little bit. I lean a little bit towards improving the quality of the food. I know you say you're getting some quality vendors, but again, some of that money, in my view, I would like to see some plans for how we could have the kids love to eat lunch every day. I know I've got kids in the system, and some days they love it, and other days they're begging us to make sandwiches. But again, that's another way I think you get to add value to it, whether it's lowering the price or giving a better product. I think, as you're well aware, you can kind of attack that in different directions. So I'd like to see maybe some approach from that side as you move through this year into next year, some intentional efforts to look at ways you can bring back to us that you're maybe looking at that aspect of it as well. And you may already be, but I'd like to see some maybe that factor in, as well as looking at costs and some of those other factors. Thank you.
Mr. Director.
Yeah, and I will echo that, Mr. Moore. That's one of the things Mr. Parkhurst and I talk about a lot is his reinvestment back into the program. He has plans and the plans that he's working on. This amount, when he starts to institute some of those plans and starts to get some hard things running, that amount's going to drop and benefits going to increase. He's talking about remodeling cafeterias and making them more palatable and more appealing to kids. We're talking about doing some things with the Culinary Academy. such as offering one of the first chocolate 3D printers in the state of Tennessee. And then the culinary arts would be able to enter contests because right now they're having to do everything by hand and it's very cumbersome. So Mr. Parker he is working on reinvestment programs and looking at best ways to spend that money to get the greatest return on investment. So he is currently doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Anyone else? All right. Thank you again for that information. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay, we're now ready for the consent items. I did have one change to one of the items in consent with the minutes. And I've already clarified that with Ms. Shirley, just to make it very clear that we've taken some funding, but it didn't come out of fund balance. It was actually out of existing funds for I guess it was the website. Is that right, Ms. Shirley? Okay. So I did make a revision to that, just to clarify that. Does anybody have any other changes to the minutes? Okay. Does anybody want to take anything off the consent agenda and discuss that separately? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent items. Motion by Mr. Pennings. Second by Mr. Moore. Any discussion on the motion? We're now ready to proceed to vote. Motion passes. Now we're ready to proceed to committee reports. First report up is from our zoning facility chair, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman Bates. Okay. We did have a meeting last week, and you should have the notes in the packet, but we did have 4 items that as a committee we decided to take some action on. The first item would be to approve the release of the retainage under the train performance contract for schools as they have been completed, and to continue releasing that retainage as those schools are signed off on. We also voted to move ahead, approve the immediate repairs to the Spring Hill Elementary School fire alarm up to $80,000 through a recently used alarm repair contractor. And we did acknowledge that it is an emergency situation, so we are going to continue ahead as that is an emergency situation. We did approve a bid number 16-036 for a system-wide HVAC repairs through the open PO with Train Company for the amount of $100,000, and that will be coming from the Capital Project Fund 114. We also selected and approved the contract with Village Roofing Company for repairs to the roof at Spring Hill High School, not to exceed $7,000, and that comes from the existing Capital Project 114 budget. The only other comment on that too, I would make a request that as we take these up, if we could pull apart the Spring Hill Elementary vote on that one for the fire system there. But that's all as committee.
All right, does anyone want to, we are taking that one item out of 4 to vote on separately and discuss separately. Does anybody want to remove anything else for separate discussion? Okay. All right, so what we will do, we're going to move forward with the recommendation of the committee on item A, C, and D. Okay. All right, so that coming from the committee, we do not need a second. Does anybody have any discussion on those 3 items that we're voting on? All right, we'll now to proceed to vote whether we approve and adopt the committee's recommendations on those 3 items. Motion passes, so the recommendations are approved and adopted by this board. All right, let's go back to the other recommendation of the committee regarding the Spring Hill Elementary School fire alarm. Mr. Moore, I think we had some additional discussion on that.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to, we did have some information, I think, from Stan Breeden. If he wanted to add to that, I didn't know if it would be relevant to the vote. I just wanted him to have a chance to share that with us.
Mr. Breeden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to give you just a brief update on what's happened since the meeting last week, because there were two things that we were going to do to move forward immediately. One was to contact the company Provincia, who was the low bidder on our last project, and talk about proceeding. The second one was to at least make contact with the state comptroller's office, the auditor who works with us, to verify with them kind of our steps to move forward. Our procedure, based on recommendation that you all agreed to, and what Mr. Woolver suggested, was that this was an emergency purchase and we could move forward and making this happen so we could get this fire alarm system replaced as soon as possible, because it appears to be failing. And of course, this process will ultimately include, there has to be a plan design that has to go to State Fire Marshal's office, which normally is a 30-day wait. So it's why we need to get started on this as quickly as possible. We did contact the auditor, asked the question, and the suggestion was that even though this was an emergency purchase, the recommendation was still that we get three quotes, not necessarily go to a formal bid process, but we get 3 quotes. We did also make the contact with Provincia, and they said, and we talked to them, we would like to confirm for sure that they would recommend replacing the system, that this is not a repair that we could do. And they suggested in order to do that, they would need to send a couple of technicians out to spend a couple of days just going through the entire system. And they obviously did not offer to do that for free for us. They said that would be somewhere, around $1,000 or so to pay for those technicians to come out. But in talking to Mr. Woolver, I made contact back with him again, and he said he still recommended that as an emergency purchase, that we go ahead and move forward with contracting with Provincia to do that. We would do that just simply through executive committee approval, working within the budgeted funds that you set for us the other night. And then once we get their recommendation, if their recommendation was to move forward and replace it, we'd go ahead and do that under emergency, under an emergency purchase approval process, with the executive committee signing off on that and us moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Breed. So it sounds like, I guess, from your discussion with Mr. Walliver, we're still comfortable moving forward with the authority that the committee was recommending to go ahead and move forward up to $80,000.
That was my understanding. He's here. He can answer your questions too, but that was my understanding.
And Mr. Breeden, I think maybe you can speak to that for the public record as well, that I think the fire marshal, they were telling you all that you all would basically have to be out there standing on watch or something, as long as when the system was temporarily down.
Actually, that is the state fire code. If you do not have an operable fire alarm system in a school facility, it cannot be occupied unless you go on fire watch, which means you have to have a trained fire personnel who patrol the building every 30 minutes, patrol all sections of the building. They keep a log. We have to file that with the state fire marshal's office. Last week, what actually happened was the system failed one evening, and the Spring Hill Fire Department responded. They told us until we got it back working, we'd have to go on fire watch, which we did for a day. We did get a temporary repair. It has, as Mr. Wolver said, wires jiggled, tightened up, but we've had it fail twice in the last 3 weeks, and so that's why we feel like that it's kind of getting to possibly the end of its life.
Mr. Moore.
I just want to point out, we do have a currently working fire system.
We do. It is working now. It is working. It has not, once they came out and worked on it, it is back in operable condition. The fireman who was there he signed off on it and they left. I've been in communication with the fire chief in Spring Hill about this, and so we're kind of working under their guidance as well.
Right. So we've got it temporarily working. But we still have concerns about that.
We do,
And that
yes,
was the
sir.
concerns of the committee, and the committee is recommending that we go ahead and move forward to give staff the authority to move forward with doing a contract up to $80,000 on an emergency basis. And it still could be subject to coming back and being ratified by this board.
And the reason we moved, let me just make one other comment, Mr. Chairman. This is based on our experience last year. We had two other schools where we had a similar situation, both at Whitthorne Middle School and Cox Middle School. At Whitthorne, the panel actually the fire panel actually ceased to work, and we were told it couldn't be repaired. At that time, we had to go on fire watch. The fire marshal gave us a temporary time to put in a new fire panel, but the problem is the fire panel that is there does not meet current code regulations. So when you put in a new panel that meets current code regulations, then you have to put in new devices that meet current code regulation, which is basically you have to replace the entire fire alarm system. And so that's what we got in there. We started to experience the same problems at Cox. We replaced that one the same way. So we're kind of using our experience with those two to kind of determine how to move forward.
Does anyone have any additional questions of Mr. Breeden? Okay. All right, does anyone have any additional discussion on the committee's recommendation? All right. Hearing none, we're ready to proceed on the vote on the committee's recommendation in order to adopt and approve that recommendation. All right, that motion passes. All right, Mr. Moore, do you have any other reports for this board?
That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. All right, we're now ready to proceed to the policy committee. Chair Parker is not present, so Vice Chair Lassiter is going to be filling in. And it looks like you all have some recommended amendments from your committee, Mr. Lassiter, and those are listed A through K on our written agenda. Does anyone have any of those items on our written agenda that they want to pull out to discuss separately? Mr. Lassiter, do you have any additional comments on those? Okay. All right, so we're now ready to proceed on the vote to approve and adopt the committee's recommendations as reflected in our written policy, or written agenda. Is there any discussion on that vote? Here, now we're ready to proceed. All right, those passes. Those recommendations are approved and adopted by the board. All right, so next item, it looks like we don't have anything listed for posting any proposed changes. Is that correct, Mr. Lassiter? All right. All right, do you have anything else you'd like to discuss from your committee, Mr. Lassiter? No. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lassiter. All right, next we're ready to proceed with the report for community relations. All right, Chair Powers, it looks like your committee has recommended to the board that we move forward with participating in the Christmas parade. Do you have any other comments on that? All right. Does anybody have any discussion on that? Oh, excuse me. Mr. Lassiter.
I know we have Columbia's listed in here. Do we need to list out that we're expanding that?
I'll say it. I think it may be a typo of it just including Columbia. I think it was the committee's recommendation to participate in possibly the Spring Hill and the Mount Pleasant parade as well, so we can reflect that in the vote. Any other discussion on the recommendation? Ms. Powers.
Just to clarify, we thought we could do all three, but there's a conflict that Mount Pleasant and Spring Hill are on the same night, so we've just got to work out which of those two we will do, in addition to Columbia.
So we'll leave the vote as moving forward with the Christmas parades, and we'll just leave out being specific. We'll get it figured out. Any other discussion on the recommendation? All right. So even though it says float in Columbia Christmas Parade, we'll let the vote reflect it's just Christmas parades. All right. Any other discussion? Ready to vote. All right, motion passes. We're now ready to proceed to the ad hoc committee. I can report that our committee approved the director evaluation instrument that we reviewed. Is any other discussion on that recommendation? Okay, we're now ready to proceed on the vote. All right, that recommendation is approved and adopted by the board. All right, we're now ready to move on to other business. First item is finance, and we're ready to hear from Dr. Perkins. All right, Dr. Perkins, I think you all have previously presented us a report of monthly revenues and expenditures, and it's in our board packet. I did discuss with you prior to the meeting that on the schedule of sales tax, I think we may have a typo on projected increase. I got a little excited when that 163% increase, but that's just a typo. I think you're going to go back and take a look at that and correct that. Is that correct? Okay. All right. Does anyone have any thing with those monthly reports that they would like to discuss or ask Dr. Perkins? All right. Well, looks like we're ready to proceed to the next item. We've got some budget amendments, Dr. Perkins. You have those listed in our on our agenda. It looks like we have budget amendments 4359 through 4363. Does anyone have any questions or anything they want to discuss with those particular budget amendments that are being proposed? Okay. Does anyone want to vote on any of those amendments separately? All right. If there are none, I'll entertain a motion to approve budget amendments BA 4359 through 4363. Motion by Mr. Beaver. Second by Ms. Powers. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready to proceed to vote. Motion passes. Thank you, Dr. Perkins. All right, now we're ready to proceed with our low bids and purchases over $10,000, and we'll hear from Mr. Breeden. Mr. Breeden, what I'm going to do is just kind of go through it. You've got 3 items under that particular agenda item, and I'm just going to kind of go through each one to see if anybody has any discussion on each individual one. Looks like the first item is bid number 16010. It's purchase of 4 buses, and from your report, it looks like the total price is $359,620. And this is based upon we've got a normal routine where we're replacing a certain number of buses each year, so we're not just waiting to have to replace them all at the same time when they wear out. Does anyone have any discussion on that particular bid? All right, Mr. Breeden, the next bid item is 16038, professional development and Howell Elementary School. Looks like from your report, that's going to be taken from 142 Title 1A funds in the amount of $10,396. And this is for professional development, it looks like for 20 teachers over a 2-day period related to math. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's using some of the federal funds funds to do that. Ms. Hammond is here. She can probably answer the questions better than that than I can if anybody has those. But
Does anybody have any questions on that particular bid proposal? Hey, Mr. Breeden, I guess I did have just a few questions, and maybe she can come up and
Okay.
answer some of those questions. How are you doing? It's not a large amount, but I was just going to ask, and these are probably questions I'm going to commonly ask with most programs. Is this a particular program that we've done before with our teachers as far as professional development with this particular subject, with math?
And could you give me, does it have the title of that professional development on there with 9 schools? Right here.
this one right here. Does that help you? Do you want me to go get the file?
No, Mr. Ford, you can help me with this. With 9 schools, it's hard for me to keep all of them. Okay, right, it's the.
It looks like this is at Randolph Howell, and it's
Yes.
from the Houghton Mifflin Harcourt or
Mifflin,
something.
yes, yes. And this is also goes along with the purchase of the product as well,
Yes,
doesn't
ma'am.
it? And it's to support RTI. We're having a hard time finding things that can support math, RTI. So this goes along with the purchase of the Do the Math.
Yes, ma'am.
So the program is Do the Math, and I guess I was going to ask, do we have a track record? Is this something that we've done before at Howell or at
This-
other schools?
No,
Okay.
no.
And do we have some, I guess, research where, I guess, indicates that this particular program is effective? Other
Yes.
districts have done this, and they've
Yes.
seen some bang for the
Yes, this
buck.
is a research-based product, yes, it is. And other schools will tell you that it's hard to find math materials that, math materials are harder to come by for our response to instruction intervention. And so this is something that they have done quite a bit of research on.
Okay, that's good to hear. And the other thing I was just going to ask is, could we maybe after, since this is going for the math teachers, maybe get some input from them after they do it to see, yes, this was good, or no, this was a waste of our time? Just so, and maybe report that, I don't know if the board has to hear it, but maybe report that to the director, and he may already have something in place. He's always 2 steps ahead of me on everything. But just so that he is aware, if other schools are thinking about, hey, we're going to do that program, well, hey, we've got some feedback. The teachers, maybe they weren't satisfied with it, or some teachers were saying this is great. So I think that would be helpful just to have that kind of line of communication.
And that's exactly what, oftentimes our Title I schools, because they do have the extra supplemental funding, they are able to sample products, just as the 95% that Mr. Gaines was able to purchase materials for our entire K-8 schools. We first started using that in our Title I schools, and faculties began to see that gaps were closing in particular skills. And so that is why we had the discussions to go with the 95% in reading language arts. So hopefully this will also be a product that will be very beneficial in helping children in the RTI process.
Okay, good. Does anyone else have any questions or discussion? All right, thank you. The next item, Mr. Breeden, is bid number 16039. This looks like amount of $40,000 going to be taken from current budget item 141 special ed funds. And this is to the Speech, Language, and Learning Center, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
This is contracted services that we normally contract. We bring it to you because we have to bring all purchases over $10,000, but this is within the normal scope of what we are already doing in our special ed program, and with a contract that we already have established
Right.
with the Speech and Language Learning Center.
So in this particular program with the Speech, Language, and Learning Center at Lawrenceburg, this is something that we have done in the past. We've
Yes,
done
sir.
contracts with them in the past. Do we have any current data where we can actually see whether we think, yes, this is being an effective program, this is helping I guess it's our speech language teachers primarily?
Yeah, again, I'll call on Ms. Ventura
Okay.
to answer those because she can answer that better than me.
Great, thank you. How are you doing today?
Good
Good.
evening. Unfortunately, in the great state of Tennessee, we have a speech language pathologist shortage right now. So a lot of school systems have moved to contract because they make more per hour. The speech language pathologists themselves make more per hour. We have a posting just about all the time for a speech language pathologist. We very rarely have applicants that are certified and qualified. We employ 9 speech language pathologists, and then we contract with 7 through speech language and learning. This $40,000, this particular purchase order for $40,000 is probably going to take us till about March to go through. Currently, our bills run between $4,000 and $7,000 a month, depending on fall break, Thanksgiving, kids being absent, the amount of evaluations and assessments that they have to do. But legally, I'm bound to provide.
Sure.
Legally, we are bound
And so
to
this
provide these
is like,
services.
the 40,000 is, it almost sounds like we're probably contracting out to have somebody come in to do
Yes.
these services.
Yes, they
Gotcha,
come in and
gotcha.
provide the services for us.
Eventually,
Yes.
I'll learn eventually.
That's all right.
I'll get
And
all
like I
this
said,
stuff.
hopefully that will take us several months out.
Gotcha, gotcha. Anybody have any other questions or discussion? Oh, sorry. Mr. Lass.
Thank you for answering some of the questions that I had on that, but it sounds though like through our contracting that we end up paying more for a person than we pay for our own employees. Is that?
Yes and no. When you contract, of course, you're not providing any benefits. So when you look at the per hour rate, it's fairly comparable, but yes, the contracted people do make more per hour than our employees. Absolutely.
Okay, and you said the reason that we haven't hired more is just because we can't, at the
Yes.
rate we're willing to pay, we're not finding them.
We have a posting in the 4 years I have worked in Murray County, we have had a posting up continuously, and I am constantly looking at the applicants. There are very few speech language programs in the universities near us. Western Kentucky and TSU. TSU had a graduating class of 12 last year. So they go to contract, and they're young kids. They don't care about benefits, and I don't mean that ugly, but they go for the money, They go for the money. And then when they get a little experience, they apply, and that's a good thing. But, I got to wait for them to get a little seasoned and have some children and want that benefit that we can offer them.
Because I had questions asked about that, so, that answers those questions for now, but maybe we need to look at
Yes, it is
changing
something.
our way of doing business too.
Yes, it is something that we have discussed several times, Human Resources and I and the previous director, about making it a more lucrative proposal for them to come and work for us. And other districts do offer different differentiated pay scales for them. And that's something we definitely need to look at. Sure.
Sounds like this may be one of those college and career items we need to discuss with our students to get on a path to make some good money. There it is. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know when we had kind of talked about shifting this direction, I guess it was earlier this year, or maybe it was last year, I'm starting to lose track. Moving forward, I would definitely like the director and the department to really look closely at our model for this. I know I had some concerns at that point about the hybrid model of us outsourcing as well as keeping some staffing. And I still believe that we really need to take a very close look at which one is the most efficient way of providing these services. I just have a hard time believing that kind of a hodgepodge of a couple of different ways is going to be the best way to get there. If one of them is the best way to go, whether it be doing all staffing in-house or doing all outsource, we need to, in some way, figure out what the most efficient ways is. I feel like we're kind of just playing catch-up as these come up and we get billed for it and we just kind of do it. I just would like to be more intentional.
We
about
are
it.
moving more and more towards the fee-for-service model. So our bills are getting smaller and smaller, but in order to do fee-for-service, where they're billing TennCare and not billing us, I still have to have somebody who writes the individualized education plan. I still have to have staff members that do that. You also, just something to think about, you get into a slippery slope when you have 100% contract, because if I assess you and I say that you're eligible, I'm also getting the kickback of getting paid for that. And I am not accusing speech language learning of doing, I would not, I mean,
No.
some of you know them personally, and it is a wonderful, reputable company. But when you move to a full contract model and you don't have those people as gatekeepers, as your own employees, that's the slippery slope. That's why I recommend the hybrid.
And, I appreciate that. I get the feeling it's not intentional at this point. It seems like we're finding our way through it. All I know, and again,
Absolutely.
I am ambivalent on which direction we go, to be honest. I just want to make sure we're very intentional about
Yes.
which program we go with and how we implement it and do it in a very intentional way.
Absolutely.
Any other discussion? All right, Mr. Breeden, looks like you're back up. So it looks like we're ready to vote. We have the 3 low bids that we just went over. Does anybody want to vote on those separately? All right. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve bid number 16010, 16038, and 16039. Motion by Mr. Moore. Second by Mr. Pennings. Any discussion on the motion? Ready to proceed to vote? All right, that motion passes. All right, Mr. Breeden, looks like we have the 2015 fall surplus to go over.
Yes, sir, I apologize. I'd forgotten that was on the list. I thought I was going to get away. This is, as you know, twice a year we go through our inventory of equipment. We end up surplusing some equipment because it's no longer serviceable for us. Most of it's past the use that we can get out of it. We certainly don't surplus anything that we could use within our school district. Most of it's out-of-date things or either just really past use. But there's still some surplus value, salvage value in it, surplus value in it. And so we use that. We do that through GovDeals, an online auction service. And so we're just asking for your approval. I think you have a list of the items that will be in our fall auction.
Any questions of Mr. Breeden? Ms. Breeden, I think you may have answered this already for me, but I know I was looking at the list, and there are a lot of items that say surplus, and when I see that, I'm kind of thinking, well, we bought too many of them.
Yeah.
But you're saying primarily it's things that are obsolete.
Yes, sir, that is correct. There's very few things you'll ever find in there that are new or we've had. If it's become surplus, it's a reason. It's not that we just bought too much. What comes to mind, for instance, a few years ago, we had to surplus fryers because the federal government no longer let us use those in our school nutrition program, and some of those were still serviceable, but we just couldn't use them. But this equipment that you see is old, outdated equipment mostly.
And I guess we need a vote to approve you all to sell these items then?
Yeah, we can't sell them without your approval.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the items that's in your board packet that put those items out for sale? Mr. Moore, motion, second. Second by Ms. Powers. Now, well, let me ask, is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, ready to proceed to vote. All right, that motion passes, and for some reason, Mr. Moore doesn't want to vote, but no. Do you want that recorded as a yes? All right, so we'll let the minutes reflect that is a vote of 7-0. All right, next item's under instruction. Looks like we have a 2015 LEA compliance report.
Good evening. Each year, we ask you to approve our report that our schools are meeting all the compliance rules and regulations for as according to the state rules and regs. We did have one area of non-compliance. As you know, we have 26 students in first grade at Hampshire Unit School, and we are in the process of sending a letter to the commissioner to ask her to waive that. We have been on 26 students since the beginning of school, and that number has not moved. The average in the K through 3 average is not over. It's 13 students, about 13.1. So we don't have a problem with we have one class that's over, but the average is not over. So we're asking to just waive that requirement and stay at 26.
Okay. And Mr. Gaines so we have 26 in first grade in Hampshire. That's what we're reporting.
Yes.
And what is the max?
25.
25. So we're just over one. Okay. And I guess, do you need a vote of the board then in order to be able to send this
To approve.
on
Yes, sir.
to the Department of Education?
Yes.
Does anyone have any discussion regarding the report? All right. Excuse me, Ms. Powers.
So I'm just curious, you said first grade? That's just a lot of kids in a room. And what would be the alternative? I'm just curious.
The principal sent us a plan. She does have an educational assistant that's in there all the time, and they do change their groups up frequently. The second grade has 12 students. The commissioner could say, no, we have to meet the requirement, and we would have to hire another first grade teacher, which would split that. We would split that class up and form another first grade class.
But there's an assistant in that room all day long, every day.
According to Miss Kathy, I don't know if she's in there all day, every day. I know that she's in there during the prime times. And the other teachers have smaller groups, and they work kind of a K2 model throughout the reading block, so they're able to move students around and work with them. So according to the principal, it has not been an issue with them.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? And Mr. Gaines, I guess, so in the beginning of the year, it's always hard to kind of judge how many kids are going to show up in first grade. That's always kind of a moving target. And you never know, some enroll and then they end up transferring out. And so that's a moving type number. But it looks like, so right now, though, that number, it looks like it's pretty set.
It's stayed pretty steady the whole year. It's been right at 26, and it hasn't moved.
Okay. And so I guess, are we monitoring that then, that if it looks like
Yes, sir.
to make sure the kids are getting the proper education,
Yes,
that
sir.
we may split that up and bring another teacher in?
If enrollment increases, we would have to come back and say, we would, you always, when you look at earlier grades, you don't want to, once they get used to a teacher, you don't want to adjust them by moving. 'Cause that was one of the factors we tried to look at. So, as you say, if it does get too large, we will make that adjustment. We'll just have to add it, we'll come back and add a teacher. And of course, the state may tell us, no, you need to add a teacher.
Okay.
And we'll just have to deal with that.
Any other discussion on the report? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to authorize us to send this LEA compliance report to the Department of Education. Motion by Mr. Pennings. Second by Mr. Beaver. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. All right, motion passes. Next item, collaborative conferencing. As I sent out a copy of the statute to everyone, it's kind of a convoluted process that the General Assembly has set out if we're going to have collaborative conferencing. There's several steps that we have to go through. First step is, there has to be a petition of at least 15% of our employees that submits that, and it's my understanding from the director that has been satisfied. So the next step under the statute, what the statute says is that the board has to appoint a special question committee. And this special question committee then does a poll of all the employees to see, that's the vote, that's the actual vote, do they want to collaborative conference or not? So we're now in the second stage of that process where we have to appoint somebody as that special question committee. And you all can look at the statute. I sent a copy of that to you all. It looks like the special question committee is just basically kind of like poll monitors. They just basically supervise the poll, make sure it's confidential. And if the vote is at least a majority, then we as a board would have to appoint 7 to 11 representatives of management to serve on the collaborative conference committee, and our employees would also then appoint 7 to 11 representatives of their own. So again, kind of backing up, where we're at with the collaborative conference process is we're in the second stage, and so today we need to appoint someone or more than one person to serve on the special question committee in order to supervise the confidential poll. And from discussions with the director is figured out a way, I guess, the way that the poll is going to be conducted. You may speak on this, but basically it's going to be done by email. So an email is going to go out to all the employees where they can vote. And there's actually, the statute sets out exactly, they vote on question number 1, do they want a collaborative conference? And question number 2 is who do they want to represent them? Okay? So once we do appoint the special question committee, that committee will move forward to do that vote, and then they will report back to us to tell us whether we have 51%, at least a majority that want to do that. And what we'll do, the statute is very condensed. When all these things have to happen, they basically put all that in November. All this has to be done in 30 days. And so we have the holidays on top of that too, but we'll get it done. So what I would recommend is that for the special question committee, in order to supervise the poll, that we just have one member of the board. I don't see that we really need to have a bunch of people just to supervise something that's really going to be done by email, but that's what the statute says. And so what my recommendation is just to have the one member of the board to supervise that. And I would nominate Mr. Pennings. And it's my understanding from the Murray County Education Association, I think Mr. Mark Orman, you're probably going to serve as a representative to work with Mr. Pennings as far as supervising that poll. So, but I'll open it up to the board. We can have more than one member of the special question committee. Does anybody want to have more than one member? All right. If there are none, then what I will do, again, I officially nominate Mr. Pennings. Does anybody want to nominate anybody else to serve as a representative? All right, I'll close the nominations. And so what I will do is move that we officially nominate Mr. Pennings to serve on the special question committee. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moore. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we're ready to proceed to vote. All right, that motion passes. So, Mr. Pennings, it's off to you now to monitor the vote. Now, I understand that this vote is going to get started tomorrow. That's when the employees will start voting, and that voting, I think from discussions with Murray County Education Association, that voting will actually stay open until November 30th. That's really the last day we can under the statute. And then, assuming that there is a majority vote, then we will then appoint our representatives on the collaborative conference. My recommendation is we just go with 7 members. Now, the statute says we can go up to 11. That'll be up to the board to decide if they want to have 11. But if you have 7 representatives from the board and 7 representatives from the employees, that's going to be a total of 14. And so that's already pretty big. So, but again, the board can, if they want to have 11, then the employees would have 11. You'd have a 22. So. But it's going to be up to the board. But anyway, on December 1st, what we'll do, I'll call a special session, which we're having a committee meeting that night anyway. So we'll just strictly just to comply with the statute, we'll appoint the representatives, assuming Mr. Pennings reports back to us that there's a majority vote for a collaborative conference. Okay? All right, next item on the agenda is just an FYI. Does anybody want to discuss any of those items? All right, seeing none, we're now ready for announcements and communications. I just wanted to thanks again to Highland Park Elementary for doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and also the good song that we got. We got a bonus too, so really appreciate that. That was great. All right, I'm going to turn it over to the director now.
Yes, exactly. I'm sorry I wasn't here to hear Highland Park Elementary School, but I got a chance to talk to them outside, and they were like, "Hey, we know you." So I told them, "Hey, good job, guys," and they were like, "Thank you." But even though I didn't hear them, still made them feel good. So talking about scheduled meetings and changes, I want to remind everybody there's no school tomorrow for students. We have professional development for staff. Adults, contain yourselves, please. So, and then we'll be off all of next week for Thanksgiving break. So as my children reminded me last night, Dad, we're out for 10 days. So we'll see everybody back here on Monday, November the 30th. So on Monday, November 30th, we do have a policy committee meeting here at Horace O. Porter at 6 o'clock, followed by a community relations committee meeting. I'm excited to see the updates on the logo. That's what I'm really excited about. Plus also we have some stuff coming to you that night about dress code. So students have been bugging the bejesus out of me on dress code. So I'm excited to talk about it that night. Tuesday, December 1st, we have a zoning and facilities committee meeting back here at Horace Porter at 6 o'clock. Thursday, December 10th, we have a regular board meeting. Tuesday, December 15th, a county budget meeting at 4:30. Friday, December the 18th, we have early dismissal, getting ready for winter break. And then Monday, December 21st through Tuesday, January 5th, we have winter break. Monday, however, though, December 25th, we have a county commission meeting at 6:30 p.m. And then Thursday, December 24th through Friday, December 25th, central office will be closed. So you can call, but you're just going to get voicemail. Thursday, December 31st through January 1st, central office is closed again. Monday, January 4th is an admin day, and Tuesday, January 5th is a professional development day. And Wednesday, January the 6th, students return back to school. Do want to remind everybody that on December the 9th are going to be our 2x2 tours. That's where a board member, a city commissioner, and a county commissioner will pair up, and they'll go visit some schools. 2 schools visits, 8:30 to 9:30, 10 to 11, and then we're going to meet from 11:30 to 12:30 for lunch at Puckett's. We'll kind of debrief the morning and walk away hopefully with some good information about what everybody saw and things that we can take moving forward. And that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Director. All right, so next item on the agenda is to hear from board members, and so I'm just going to open the floor. Does anyone have anything they want to talk about? Mr. Moore.
Just briefly, I wanted to thank Mr. Orman for the information from the teachers. I find that very helpful to get that kind of information and feedback of what they think about what's going on kind of day to day in the classroom. So thank you very much for that.
Mr. Pennings.
And thank you all for being here. I want to thank McDowell and Mr. McNeese. I took a tour of McDowell today and looked it over, and I took a tour of the soon-to-be New Central High School on Tuesday, and they're sure working fast.
Mr. Lassiter.
I'd like to thank everyone for their enthusiasm and contribution so far to our Christmas parades entry. And just, I see Mr. Bobby Bush back there. By the way, that we're still going to hold a record for, for the longest float for the school system anyway. So Mr. Bush was involved, and we built one that was about 85 to 90 some feet long. So we had quite and it was fun, wasn't it? So, and that's unsolicited. So the idea is, if we're sorry that it's kind of late notice. We want to hopefully we can get started tomorrow evening on stuff and go through and do some stuff on Saturday. I don't even know. I understand we're going to be at Central High School. I don't even know what room we're going to be in. I don't know. Mr. Marzek might have a better clue. All right, and I know, Friday that, like I said, hopefully about 5 o'clock in the evening, we're gonna get started, and, I mean, after that, I guess we'll just have to Facebook it and whatever else, because hopefully if this goes over well and people have fun and it's received well by all of us, then hopefully we'll be much better prepared for Mule Day and parades to come. So thank you very much. And one other thing I'd like to add real quick is that was a very good comment that I had forgotten. I wanted to mention I'd forgotten about. But I would like to ask this board that we have more control than the school calendar, and we need to make it a point not to have meetings on parent-teacher conference nights, because we need teachers and administrators in their schools, being there to meet with parents. And, if we have the opportunity, if you have kids, you need to be there going through and talking to teachers and encouraging them, and hopefully they're encouraging you. And if you don't, then hopefully we can get out and go through some different schools. And it's been a good opportunity for me to get to go revisit some schools. So hopefully in the future, we'll try to make a harder effort not to be here on parent-teacher conference nights. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lassiter. Anyone else? All right, if there's no one else, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Moore, second by Mr. Pennings. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.